With its powerful mixture of sex and piety, King of Kings set the mold for the Hollywood biblical epic. And for another 30 years, Cecil B. DeMille would remain its most cunning exponent. When it was formed in 1913, the British Board of Film Censors made two sweeping prohibitions: no nudity and no depiction of Christ. It compelled filmmakers to make ingeniously oblique references to a Jesus whose face could never be seen.
Art thou King of the Jews?
Sayest thou this thing of thyself, or did others tell it thee of me?
Am I a Jew? Thine own nation and the chief priests have delivered thee unto me. What hast thou done?
My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence.
Art thou a king then?
Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth heareth my voice.
What is truth?
The restriction was still in force in Britain in the 1930s, when in at least one British-made biblical epic, filmmakers were obliged to reduce Jesus to a completely invisible presence. In 1935, this is what British audiences missed when they watched the French-made Golgotha, Robert Le Vigan playing a full-frontal Jesus.
The difficulty with Jesus as a movie star is that the character doesn't do two of the things that movie heroes ought to be doing, that they normally do in commercial mainstream movies. He doesn't get into fights, he doesn't get into punch-ups, and he doesn't kiss anyone, he doesn't fall in love.
Movie makers discovered that to inject sex and violence into biblical epics, it was wise to push Christ into the background and build the story around hero figures of the time, real or fictional. In the 1950s, Jesus made guest appearances in widescreen CinemaScope, the image-stretching format designed to repel the challenge of that upstart TV. When Hollywood took its courage in both grasping hands and made the first Life of Jesus movie since King of Kings, it borrowed Cecil B. DeMille's title, but alas, not his flair. Nicholas Ray was not the first talented director to stumble under the weight of his theological burden. His answer to the famous question, is Jesus human or divine, seemed to be neither. He's Jeffrey Hunter. In King of Kings, the director was reluctant to show the biblical Jesus as a flesh and blood figure. This was a Christ not only without hormones, but without sweat glands. George Stevens decided to shoot the greatest story ever told in the Mesa country of Utah, because the landscape offered him a poetic truth that Israel's did not. But more than this, he wanted to convey historical truth about the life of Christ that other films, he believed, had failed to deliver.
It was certainly one part of my father's purpose in making the film. First, that this be a film of compassion and the compassion that Jesus represented, and certainly that it not, continue this business of the Jews being Christ killers. And he worked very hard at that, and I think it was important to him, and I think it was one of the virtues of the film, that this, what he called the mischief of that, was removed from the story.
And I went over to Hollywood for a week, and he didn't have a screenplay by that time, but he had say, scenes, separate scenes, which were written by the poet Carl Sandburg. And I liked them. They were very beautiful, actually. They were very interesting and very poetic and were full of double meanings. And he also presented me essays of what he wanted to do with the film, what kind of a Jesus he wanted to show. And all of it sounded very fascinating to me. And he also showed me a lot of research which was done, and sketches for costumes and sets. And finally I agreed to do it.
I think he was looking most of all for someone to play that role whom you could believe was Jesus of Nazareth. And he was aware that the personality of star actors would come between the actor and the audience. And we were also skeptical that we would ever find an unknown actor with, sufficient skill to play the role. And then we came upon the idea of Max von Sydow, who we had seen in the wonderful Ingmar Bergman films. And he became our Jesus.
Who are you? I don't know you. Yet I know you.
Baptize me, John.
What is your name?
Jesus.
Where born?
Bethlehem.
Is it not you who should baptize me?
Why do you ask me this?
In the scriptures it's written, from you, Bethlehem, shall he come forth, who is to be ruler in all Israel, whose coming has been of old, from time everlasting.
The problem with The Greatest Story was also that it was full of known faces. They didn't want Jesus to have a well-known face, so they picked me. But instead, they filled up the entire cast, almost, with very well-known faces. And that's also wrong.
Starting with the premise that we would have this unknown but very distinguished actor playing Jesus, we felt there was an opportunity there to enlist all of the major actors of the time and include them into the film, which obviously was have the one purpose of helping attract an audience. Although I think for the most part, in casting the star actors, I think it really helped the film. I think there were a couple of isolated instances, which John Wayne, for one, which was criticized, and certainly understandably criticized.
Truly, this man was the Son of God.